What's going on, Colts Nation, and welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Cody and Derek, back with another one, guys. Well, it was a stress-free Sunday from an Indianapolis Colts standpoint as the Colts had their bye week, but now the Colts are back here and are going to be headed to Arrowhead Stadium on Sunday to face the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to talk about something that we haven't seen pretty much all year, Derek, and we're going to talk about this secondary, and then we're going to kind of go into this secondary and the impact they could have moving forward. But before we do that, guys, just want to say this episode is sponsored by FanDuel. Guys, right now the Indianapolis Colts are actually underdogs somehow, some way. Despite having the better record over the Kansas City Chiefs, the Indianapolis Colts right now.
We know why. We know why they're the underdogs. It's the Chiefs. I mean, most places still have the Chiefs as the favorite to win the Super Bowl, which is crazy.
Yeah, but the Colts right now, plus 158 to win this. So if you guys are like, man, I tell you what, the NFL is ridiculous. The betting odds are ridiculous right now. Colts are going to win this. Be sure to get on that action right now because the Colts are not favored in this game. In a game that record-wise and everything else-wise, Colts certainly have the advantage on, but obviously paper doesn't mean anything until you go out there and prove it. And Arrowhead's a hard place to win. So we'll have to see on that. But again, just wanted to say shout out to FanDuel on that. Also, guys, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe, as about 42% of you who watch these videos are not yet subscribed. So we'd really appreciate it. If you do us a favor, hit that like button, hit subscribe. Also turn on that notification bell so you know when we drop fresh content just like this. But anyway, Derek, let's talk about this, man. This is something that you talked about it in a video, I think last week, about just how the Indianapolis Colts have not yet this season had their entire secondary healthy in terms of cornerbacks. It's crazy, man, how that is just the reality of it, right? Obviously, you brought in, a couple guys in the offseason. You brought in Charvarius Ward. You drafted Justin Wally. Justin Wally goes down. You have to go sign Xavier Howard last minute. He starts week one. Then you lose Charvarius Ward in week one due to the concussion. And it's just kind of been all these crazy things, man, that have gone down. Pretty much everybody in this secondary that's played substantial snaps for you this year has had some sort of injury. I think outside of Mekhi Blackman, everybody's had to miss some time, which is just crazy in itself to talk about that. But you look at it now, Derek, and obviously the Colts trade for Sauce Gardner a couple weeks ago. He goes with very little preparation, flies over to Germany, plays for the Colts. They have a bye week now, so he has a little bit of time to be in this defense. You have Kenny Moore still in that secondary, and now potentially an opportunity for the Indianapolis Colts to get back two players in their cornerback room. The first one and the most impactful one would be Charvarius Ward, who missed, obviously, the last 4 games due to the concussion, had an extra week there of recovery there with the bye week. So potentially an opportunity for Ward to come back, and also for cornerback Mike Hilton to potentially come back. Again, he got injured in week 5, so there's an opportunity for him to come back off the IR. So it's kind of crazy to me, Derek, that you go from just a few weeks ago, an extremely razor-thin cornerback room, to potentially the deepest in the NFL when you look at it, and potentially the most talented too, if Mooney Ward can continue his stellar play from this season with Sauce Gardner on the other side and Kenny Moore in the slot. So what are your thoughts, man, just on this cornerback room and all the craziness that's had to endure this year, but now potentially an opportunity going into Arrowhead to have your secondary intact for the first time this entire year?
Yeah, I mean, certainly hope that Charvarius Ward will be back for this game against Kansas City and Arrowhead. I know that he had, I think it was right before they left for Germany, he was doing some work off to the side with trainers and whatnot. So obviously, it's not really something that physically limiting, it's really not going to impact him too much, but obviously to make sure that he's out of protocol and making sure that he's cognitively good to be able to continue to play the game. Even Sauce Gardner today, when talked about him, said that he can't wait to get out there and start playing with him. So obviously the expectation is that Ward's going to be back out there very soon. So that's awesome to hear. Yeah, I mean, no doubt when you look at just the ability for this team to finally have some like just some ability to have that cohesion with each other. Because yeah, Kenny Moore missed several weeks because of that MCL, hasn't really had any issues with it since then, thank God. That obviously has worked out for us. He plays at a very high level. Obviously, Sauce Gardner plays at a very high level for the corner position also. And I even talked about it earlier this last week, Cody. You remember talking the Hold Your Horses segment where, Sauce, he had to do all of that in less than a week's time. I mean, he had to be able to know how to play in the Colts scheme within less than a week. So, I mean, obviously, he's going to be a lot more prepared going into this Kansas City matchup, having 2 weeks to be able to prepare and get a better understanding of what is needed from him. And then to get a Charvarius Ward back, who was among the top 10 in corners in lockdown efficiency. I mean, if you could get that cornerback, then you have 3 of maybe potentially the top 15 best corners in the National Football League at your disposal if they're all back. So, I mean, that is remarkably crazy how good and talented this group can be once it's all healthy. Now, I hope it stays healthy and we won't have to worry about any of these guys missing extended periods of weeks anymore. I don't know if my heart can take any more of those. But obviously as well with Jalen Jones coming back now too. Great to see him back in rotation. You mentioned Mike Hilton. Hopefully he can come back here in the next few weeks as well. And then you be able to have a guy like Mekhi Blackman, who you brought in this offseason as well as a backup. It just feels like the secondary roster is starting to finally come together once again. And I'm excited. I just hope that this will be the first week where everybody's back and just ready to go on Sunday.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, like how many corners you've had to go out there and start and play significant snaps for you this year. It's pretty wild. So I guess the good thing is, like, you have guys that can and are more than capable of stepping in if needed. But obviously, you hope you don't need them, right? You hope that Mekhi Blackman's your 5th or 6th corner. And that's crazy because he's been starting as that number 2 corner the last couple of weeks, potentially number 1 even at times. So it's kind of wild that that's kind of been the case here. But yeah, I'm excited, man, just to see this secondary at full capacity for the first time, ever this year. It's going to be kind of crazy. And you mentioned it. Like, if Charvarius Ward can get back to where he was, pre-second concussion, man, I tell you what, like, you have a top 10 corner or potentially another top 10 corner, arguably top 5, depending how you view Sauce Gardner. If you can have 2 guys, Derek, that are locking down both sides of the field, like, how much more does that allow you to do? And then obviously we know what Kenny Moore does in the slot. Like, if you have 3 guys doing their jobs and performing at high levels, like, it just takes away every option for opposing quarterbacks and opposing passing offenses. And you're going to be facing, some offenses that definitely have the capability to throw the ball down the field. So you're going to need those corners to play up to their ability here, especially, Derek, without DeForest Buckner for at least a couple more weeks here, depending on that injury. And we just don't know what's going to happen with that. Is he going to be back directly after the bye? Is it going to be longer? We don't know 100%, but I think it's critical, man, just from that standpoint. We know what the pass rush is. It's been okay this year, but it's certainly had its inconsistencies, right? And without Buckner, that makes it even tougher for your pass rush. So you definitely need your cornerbacks and your secondary to help you out in a lot of ways. And maybe that's why the Colts felt like they needed to make a move like this, because, you had the injury to Buckner, obviously, and then obviously you have just so many unproven guys there in your, pass rush department. So there's just a lot of factors that I think go into this right now. But I do believe, Derek, and I'm curious what you think, I do believe that a good pass rush and good defensive back play, they play hand in hand. Like, I think if you have good defensive back play, your pass rush is going to be better. But if you have better pass rush, it helps your secondary, right? I think they play hand in hand on both sides. But certainly right now, from an Indianapolis Colts standpoint, you do wonder, what does this secondary need to do to aid this pass rush, which has had its moments, but also has been very inconsistent so far?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the last 7 opponents when it comes to passing defense. I mean, of course, the Chiefs, we know with Patrick Mahomes, we know that they can get hot at any moment if you don't have a good secondary. Jacksonville, give them credit. They have in years past absolutely destroyed us. Trevor Lawrence seems to have his best games of his entire career against the Indianapolis Colts. Now, albeit it's a completely different defense now than what it is in years past against Trevor. So we'll see if that changes. Of course, Seattle, outside of this last game, Sam Darnold's been lighting the league on fire. And of course, with San Fran, I mean, they're getting Brock Purdy back. So their pass offense is now going to get much more effective as well. And, not even just that, Cody, from the aspect of, you're going to face the Jaguars who ETN, he's a really good runner. There's one thing that Jaguars offense has been good at this year, that's running the football. Maybe not quite to the level of the top 2 or 3 guys, but ETN has been very good this year at running the football. Obviously, Seattle runs the football relatively well. The 49ers, they can run the football well. So, I mean, you're going to have 4 different games in here where you're going to face some really good running options too. So the Colts are going to have to try to find ways to slow down the run with Buckner being gone. I mean, I think the earliest he can return is that Seattle Seahawks game in December 14th. So, midway through this stretch that we're about to go through. So, you're going to have a couple more games without DeForest Buckner around. And, you're going to have to try to find ways to slow down the run. And that's going to mean we're going to be putting a lot more of these secondary guys on an island. You're going to have to, because you're going to have to be able to stop the run, and you're going to have to try to find ways to get after the quarterback. But as you said, Cody, a really good secondary can help the defensive line tremendously. That extra half second that the quarterback has to think about it in certain areas when they're looking down the field, really can help impact somebody getting a pressure on the quarterback and then causing a bad play. So very much is the case here, and that's hopefully what you're expecting for the Colts, because with DeForest Buckner being out, who has warranted most of the double teams in the pass rush this year for the Indianapolis Colts, who is going to be that guy to step up? You hope it's Latu. You hope you're going to get more action that way. Obviously, if you have your secondary at full health now, it'll allow for this defensive line to hopefully get a few more plays in his absence to make up for the lack of or the loss of production that you're getting from him. It'll be interesting to see. Again, it felt like DeForest Buckner was one of the few guys defensively that you just couldn't afford to lose. And unfortunately, you did lose him. Hopefully we get him back sometime this year, and hopefully the Colts defense can figure it out in spite of that.
Yeah, we'll just have to see. But man, you were talking about just having to have your corners on islands, and I'm like, when's the last time the Colts have trusted their corners on islands? It's been a long time, right?
Yes.
So you have the capacity to do that now, which also I think in turn allows you to be more creative. It allows you to blitz guys. It allows you to bring more pressure than just rushing for, because you trust that your back end's going to hold up, where that hasn't always been the case. And we've seen, even with Lou Anarumo, there's been reasons why he hasn't rushed, and brought more guys, especially when your secondary was banged up. You can't trust those guys to lock down one side of the field and go one-on-one versus, top receivers in the league. But now you have that, which I think is certainly huge for your defense. So, man, you're right, though. You're going to absolutely need them to step up here, because you're playing some really good opponents that have the capability to throw the ball down the field, some really good receivers that have the capability to take the top off of defenses. So you're going to need all of it, man. You're going to need your secondary to be the lockdown secondary that you've invested in, right? With all the guys you've signed, you've traded for, like you've drafted, like you need them all to step up here, man, and to play really good football for you down the stretch, and hopefully help weather the storm the next 3+ weeks until Buckner gets back, and then you can be at full strength. But we'll just have to see if they can do that, man. The big test coming up on Sunday against a Kansas City team that lost in very dramatic fashion, that's going to be upset, that's going to try to prove something. You got to be able to weather the storm there. And if you can do that, you feel pretty good about your chances moving forward in this very tough stretch coming up. But let us know your thoughts, guys, in the comments down below. Again, shout out to FanDuel. Be sure to go check them out, guys, as always. And that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much, guys. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as always, go Colts.